Ladies, this is my new series, Autumn series. There's beauty in change. Ladies, this is a series of conversations with women who've experienced change, and not only that, but a beauty out of it. These conversations are every Thursday from 8 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Um, Ladies, I just want to welcome once again Niki Firmalino. We have I have the honor of having her on this evening and sharing her story. And so let's get started. So, Nikki, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Aisha. It's absolutely an honor to be here, as I mentioned, and I'm very excited to share with those that are watching of my story.
Awesome. So, Nikki, maybe some ladies just joined now, which is great. And so, can you just share a couple of things of who Nikki Firmalino is?
Absolutely. So again, thank you for having me. Who am I? So a couple of things I absolutely would love to share. First and foremost, I'm a proud daughter of a strong woman of faith. I'm also a friend, a sister. I'm a community worker. I absolutely love what I do. I'm absolutely passionate about mentoring, supporting, educating, leading young people in our communities. And I'm very blessed to be able to do that in my line of work. They're absolutely the most incredible human beings. I'm also an avid foodie. I love all things food and exploring different dishes and trying new things. I was very fortunate to do that over the pandemic. And last but not least, something I hold dear to my heart is that I'm a faithful believer. I absolutely love Christ. I am a child of God. Jesus, my homeboy. And again, it is absolutely the foundation of who I am and everything that I do in life. So yeah, that's who
Awesome. Great. Well, welcome, Nikki. And we're so grateful to know more about who you are. And we're going to even know more in terms of your story as we get into the questions. And so, the first question that I have for you is, what is a change that has happened in your life?
big question, Aisha. That change. So the change I'm proud to share with you all actually happened over the span of the pandemic. As many people can absolutely relate to, this past year and a half was tough. It was absolutely challenging. I definitely experienced seasons of some of my darkest moments, but on the contrary, I also experienced some of the most beautiful seasons of restoration, healing, and peace, which I'm actually really excited to share with you. So absolutely during the earliest parts of the pandemic, again, just like everybody else, I was just panicking, not knowing what was going on, how to operate. Literally, our day to day was absolutely erupted, from our daily routines to our jobs. And throughout all of that, I was also going through my personal adversities that literally could not come at a better time. And that included experiencing a heartache, finding out an earth-shattering diagnosis from the oncologist for my mom, who again, I already have a long-standing history with, and becoming a caregiver to a dependent. And those were just to name a few, all happening in the span of a few months. So as you can imagine, just to be transparent, it was really hard. And these were circumstances that were absolutely out of my control. And to deal with those things, to starve my distractions, to put my focus and my energy somewhere else so that I would go through it. Because if I allowed myself to go through it, I would go crazy. What kept me sane was work and keeping busy. Work and productivity was absolutely my safety net and the closest thing I had to any form of control of my life. But because of the pandemic, it was like that wasn't even available to me. Those things were not operational. My go-tos were disrupted. And so it almost felt like it left me to navigate a new form of normalcy going forward while dealing with life's trials and the pandemic. And to be honest with you, Aisha, basically, it left me in a place where I was literally tempted to go back into a place that I wasn't very familiar with. So essentially, to get a little bit deeper, if anything, the pandemic really heightened and exposed a lot of my internalized distresses and the mental war that I was battling with. And not a lot of people knew that about me. And just to get, again, a little bit more deeper on that, things that I would experience was states of feeling anxiety, doubt, fear, and it battled with insecurities and triggers that would lead me to disconnect and absolutely just, again, shut down. And when I would go through it, I went through it. And it was a solo trip that I definitely did not want to invite anyone to. No itinerary, no snippet, no flash on Instagram. It was something that I went through by myself. And what it did was it absolutely fed off a self-negative belief and a lie, which I was not aware of at the time, that I didn't need to bother anybody about my troubles. I didn't need to burden anybody with what I was going through. I internalized the fear that if people really knew about the things about me, about the things that were going on in my life, the difficult, the uncomfortable, the ugly parts about me, that people would see me differently and that it would scare them away. That it was better for me to deal with those things on my own to save anyone the trouble. And being vulnerable and open was absolutely not second nature to me. Even the closest of friends and family didn't know a lot of these things. So I didn't realize it at the time until later on, but what these negative patterns did was that it created a huge wall to allowing me to foster any form of healthy connections and developing any form of trust with my loved ones. Like I said, my existing friendships and family members, people I cared about, and even when it came to dating, believe it or not.
But
Unintentionally, of course.
Before you continue, Nikki, I just wanted to touch base on some of the points that you made because there may
Yeah,
be ladies who are listening who have
mhm,
experienced that mental war that you've experienced
of
as
course,
well. There may be
absolutely.
ladies who are online who have experienced the wall that was built up and relationships are
Mhm,
affected. Um,
yes.
there may be ladies online, as you said, it was a solo trip and you didn't want to bother anybody with the troubles that you were going through. And
Hmm.
sometimes as ladies, we do that. It's like, okay, I want to deal with it on my own. And when I'm finished dealing with it, okay, then I can connect with, loved ones and family
Absolutely.
members, etc. And you
Hmm.
try to
Hmm.
go through this journey alone. Um,
Yeah.
and as you said, it's a lie, and trying to be able to handle it by yourself, or having people think, oh, I don't think that I think that they'll be bothered if I tell them what
Yeah.
I'm going through, but it's a lie,
Absolutely. Hmm.
so
Hmm.
yeah, continue with your story as you were saying.
Absolutely. Thank you for highlighting that. Absolutely. And again, it could be anything that you may have experienced that kind of that feeds off that belief. And again, like unconsciously, I didn't realize those were the things that I was experiencing. And again, what really was happening over the span of the years that I was hurting people that didn't deserve that, with that limitation of trust and vulnerability, and a lot of it's because I didn't know how to respond well and be receptive to people with genuine intentions and wanted to show that love, to show that care, especially with what I was going through on a personal level with life's trials, right? So, with that being said, kind of just fast forward it. So, leading up to the end of 2020, and I can't exactly pinpoint it. I think I was in my car by myself, probably self-talking to myself, really just kind of, again, naturally at the end of the year, looking back that past year, like, okay, like really reevaluating my life and how things were. And I honestly, you know what, I just broke down. I was in a place where I felt quite brokenness, tiredness, both mentally and emotionally, and felt such heaviness because of everything that was happening in that year. And all I knew, I didn't understand it at the time, but that I knew that it started. All I could think about at that part, sorry, was that there were parts of me that was hurting, and that it needed healing. It was almost like I kind of had like an open wound and I had band-aids slapped on it and it would just be ripped off one by one by one, not really dealing with the root of the injury. And so with that being said, it all started with a decision. Either I could keep running in cycles of feeling the way that I did because of my circumstances and what I was experiencing, or literally I could just let go and let God, admitting, that I couldn't do this on my own. That it was absolutely impossible to carry the weight on my shoulders and to do it on my own and to do it well. So,
Wow, I want to touch on a couple of those points
hmm.
that you just mentioned before we go to the next question. So, how often, ladies, do we have open wounds where we just put on a band-aid, to cover it, to think that, okay, that it will heal? But really, as Niki is saying, no, like that doesn't, it may solve it temporarily, but it doesn't solve it permanently. So band-aids do not solve permanently. And so I want you to think about your own life, and in what areas, have you slapped on a band-aid more than once on the same wound, because it's like, you don't want to go there and go through dealing with the pain that is that was caused however long ago or however recent. Two, Niki talked about letting go and letting God. And again, it's about giving up our own control and allowing God, who is sovereign and always in control, taking the lead and helping us to follow him. And third, Nikki mentioned about us carrying the weight. Ladies, how many times, including myself, do we carry the weight of burdens and you just feel heavy? And so, please stay on the line, because Nikki is going to share more about her journey, and to bring hope, not only to you, the audience, but to myself. And so let's listen in. Let's continue to listen. So, Nikki, how, with all that was going on, and with the breakdown and the tears and everything, and you coming to a realization and having to make a choice, how did you experience beauty in this change that you went through in 2020?
Absolutely. So with that being said, with that understanding and realization, and funny enough, again, it was leading up to the new year where everyone makes new year, resolutions and such. But for me, I was like, you know what, 2021, sorry, this past year, which is absolutely one of the most beautiful years that I've experienced. I wanted to experience true peace. Aisha knows my mom, but my mom is someone who I always admired and is absolutely a warrior who have battled many wars. And all I could see is a piece that no one could understand based on her life story. And I wanted that. I was captivated by that. And a lot of it is based on her bold faith and her courage and her faith in Christ. So really, first and foremost, me letting go was a declaration of recommitting my life back to Christ. It was one of the best decisions of my life. And I also got my big girl pants on and decided to do the work for healing, knowing that it wasn't going to be easy and that I wasn't going to be able to do it alone. And so what I actually did, Aisha, was first and foremost, I joined community. That was one of the first steps. And Aisha, you were actually one of the first people that invited me to take part into small groups, virtually, of course. And I absolutely loved it. It definitely have learned a lot. I have grown from that. I also invested in a lot of my quiet time where I did a lot of reflecting, journaling, prayer, going over devotions, and absolutely listen to worship. So, blocking the chaos, even if it's for an hour of my day, 10 minutes of my day, just to have that time. And one of the third things I wanted to share, after getting over my biases and with huge encouragement from my bestie, who's also watching live, I decided to finally go to therapy to deal with the internal self, with my internal self story. And it eventually led me to deal with unresolved childhood traumas. Just to be a little bit more transparent, I actually grew up with household dysfunctions and experienced painful emotional traumas that affected different areas of my life, including up to my adulthood and my relationships. Hence, my inability to build trust and to let people in. I believed a lot of lies again that took captive over me, and really again prevented me to building those relationships. And again, vulnerability was absolutely felt like a sign of weakness. But guess what? Newsflash, it took me 26 years of my life to really experience, recognize, and understand that it is not a sign of weakness to seek support, to ask for help, to go through life, with other people in community. And I'm just very blessed for my experiences, the process, and I'm still doing the work, by the way, by the grace of God. And it's not an overnight transformation, but I'm absolutely joyful and feel like this is the most authentic self that I've ever been compared to the past. So, yeah.
Wow, so much to digest. And ladies, some of the points that Nikki was talking about in terms of the beauty that she experienced out of this change is joining community, being able to reflect, to be more, I guess, intentional in terms of prayer to the Lord, her devotion time, listening to worship. Um, which are, for those who may not know, songs that glorify and lift up God. She attended therapy. And as she said, it's seeking support and asking for help. It's not a weakness, but it's actually a strength. And a lot of times we think it's a weakness, but as Nikki has reminded us, no, it's a strength. And she said this is the most authentic that she has been living her life, this time period, this season. And so how amazing is that? I am It's like it's awesome, to hear that you are living your authentic self, that you rededicated your life, that you have the peace that you saw in your mom, which that peace only comes from God. It can't come from any material possession. It cannot come from any relationship, human relationship, but
Mhm.
true peace comes from God. And so this is amazing, that you made a choice, and that the change that has been occurring in your life internally,
Absolutely.
I'm sure has even changed your perspective and your mindset, and just caused beauty to just flow out of you. This is awesome, Nikki.
Thank you, Aisha. And I just wanted to include that it's not easy. It absolutely takes humility, accountability, vulnerability, transparency. And just to kind of add a little bit, part of the, that first step, that courageous bold step, I was absolutely able to develop fruitful, meaningful relationships, sorry, with my existent friendships and family members. Oof, and I'm not going to cry, but being able to take that step, it has opened so many doors, and the amount of love that was poured out, over, the fact that I had this whole belief that it would scare people away, and if anything, it brought them closer. And I'm so thankful for God for that. And that I was also able to really forgive the people in my past that has hurt me. It doesn't make an exception for wrong decisions or mistreatment, but it gives you that perspective to be more compassionate and understanding why people may, intentionally or unintentionally hurt you. So yeah, I thought I wanted to include that. So
Yeah, no, that's important. Forgiveness is important. A lot of times we think forgiveness is for the other person, but it's for us, and forgiveness brings freedom. And so, thank God for the freedom that you're experiencing, because you forgave. And it's not saying that forgiveness, that you're accepting what they've done. That absolutely not. It's not saying that
mhm,
you forget what
absolutely.
they've done. Absolutely not. But it's to release them
Yes,
from, the power that they were holding over you because of what they've done. And
absolutely.
just, and so thank God that he has enabled you to forgive. It is not easy, but you took that step to do that when you were ready to do that. What are two things that you learned about change, Nikki? Can you share that with us?
Yes, absolutely. one of the first things that definitely stood out to me is that no season is a wasteful season, that
Mm,
there is purpose in the pain or the things that you call your mess, that it could be for someone's hope, someone's salvation, encouragement, if you allow it. And that you may not understand what you're going through, but just know that whatever season you find yourself in is teaching you, positioning you, protecting you, and preparing you. And it may be uncomfortable, but it's absolutely growth. Um, and the second thing is that you are never too old, nor is it ever too late to do the work to heal. Because if you seek, it's so hard to seek healing, because if you don't, it will manifest in other areas of your life and bleed on someone who doesn't deserve it.
mm.
Um, so just know that with the journey of healing, is that it's not meant to be done alone, and that there's so much beauty in it, because you can definitely find community and a group of people you can trust who are absolutely willing to meet you where you are and love you and all your imperfections. And I was very blessed to experience that.
That's amazing. These are awesome. And I'm going to have to watch the video again because those are amazing lessons, ladies, that Nikki just shared with us. No season is a wasteful season. And the second one, that you're never too old to heal, because if you don't heal, as Nikki said, you're going to be bleeding on somebody else. And so take those nuggets, those valuable nuggets, because it applies to all of us. Things to remember, things to hold on to. What support was useful to you during this time of change and transformation?
Mhm. Um, First and foremost, the support is definitely knowing, being able to replace identifying the root and the triggers that made me believe the lies. And by doing that, I had to replace them with truths, because with negative patterns, if you keep allowing it, again, it will keep going. So you would have to replace that. And how I did that, and the biggest support again is absolutely being a having accountability in community, being surrounded by people who support you, who love you, who absolutely want to lift you up. And there are absolute people you can find that, and you don't need a large group to do that with. And again, and just holding on to that faith, especially in difficult seasons, is remembering whose I am, who I belong to, who I am in Christ, is what absolutely brought me support and encouragement in those rainy seasons. So definitely, yeah.
Awesome. And the last question, this has been honestly an very empowering and encouraging conversation. And so I want to end with this question. So, for someone who is experiencing change
Mhm.
and is having a hard time, and maybe even in the similar areas that you've
Mhm.
experienced, what
Absolutely.
advice would you give her?
Um, that's a great question, Aisha. Something I would say is that whatever you are experiencing, whatever you are going through, that you are loved, you are cared for, you are heard, and that there is a God that loves you. And just know that you do not have to go through what you're going through alone, that it's okay to not be okay, and to share that with people that you can trust and will meet you where you are. So just know that you do not have to go through it alone, and that, and as a, we're talking about, it's a season, that there are absolutely better seasons to come. So just hang on there.
Awesome advice. Great way to end, Nikki. Um, it really has been encouraging. You've been transparent, you've been vulnerable, and it really is a blessing to have you on the autumn series, my autumn series. There's beauty and change, and even though change can sometimes be ugly, it is amazing how the beauty has come from it, and
Yeah.
is just and allowing you to thrive, to flourish, to blossom. And I know those ladies who are on, and those who may watch the video, the recording,
Mhm.
that they will be encouraged, because maybe some are presently going through change and have experienced some of the things that you may have experienced, and can take some of those nuggets that you have shared and be able to use it to help them through their journey, to help them in the season, and realize, as you said, that there are better seasons ahead, and that Jesus, he can walk with us through the journey. We don't need to walk through it alone. And that ladies who are on, as Niki said, you are heard, that you are loved, and that you are cared for. Absolutely. And community is vital. So don't do it
Yes,
alone.
absolutely.
And so this brings us to the end of our first series, or our first session, I should say, our first conversation. It was a bit of a technical difficulty at the
Of course.
beginning, but thank you for staying on, ladies, and for listening to Niki Firmalino. Niki, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Again, it's absolutely a pleasure to be here. And again, I always said that, it added a little bit of intense in the beginning because it was going to be good. So Aisha, I wonder who is going to be going on next. I'm very excited for next week. So,
Thank you for asking. So next week we're gonna have on October the 14th, Vian King, and she'll be speaking to us about character building and confidence. And so stay tuned for that at 8 p.m. next week. I also want to mention, ladies, if you haven't subscribed to Rise with Hope, click the button, subscribe. And lastly, it's interesting how Nikki was talking about unresolved traumas and just being able to deal with that in order to heal. And so on Saturday, October the 16th, a team that I'm working with, team of powerful women designed to empower, we are hosting an online women's conference called Bring It to Light. And so if you are interested and want to register, please do so. You can go. Um, it is on Eventbrite. Again, the conference title is Bring It to Light on October the 16th. And we have two powerful speakers, Andrea Boea, who's going to be speaking about finding hope after trauma, and Sarah Berdy, who's going to be speaking about the power of truth and healing in our Indigenous story. And it's
amazing.
next week, October 16th, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. You do not want to miss it. And so, ladies, thank you for this time. And Niki, thank you for joining. And so, ladies, we say goodnight.